Welcome, everyone, to Kiss Meets the Podcast 4K, The Second Coming. I am one of your hosts, guy that forgets the title of the show we're doing.
That's awesome. And I think the only good way to eat Tic Tacs is like this.
And I am so...
Get that brain freeze.
I am
Extra
sad
freeze,
now.
right?
You would probably you could probably die because those are very powerful.
Yep.
You'd have a good sense of smell.
I would hope.
You would never smell anything bad again. Maybe it's a good idea. Let's all do it.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Fucking dad, man.
I'm such a bad influence.
Spicy.
So this person that didn't introduce herself is Savannah. You all should know by now. If you don't, you need to know.
Yeah. I'm the meat in the fridge.
All right, so we're back to do Black Sabbath / Tony Iommi's 7-star album featuring Eric Singer on drums. Kind of a doozy with this one. Interesting listen, and had some moments I kind of expected for Iommi, but some other things I didn't really expect, especially to have the Sabbath name on it. So, you guys kind of agree that, or what was your thoughts?
For sure. I think listening to it, knowing that it originally wasn't supposed to be a Sabbath album, makes it make a little more sense. But there's definitely some classic Iommi on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From the different stuff that I've heard that he's done before, it's definitely, for sure you can tell it's him.
Yeah, and then even his I'm thinking he only did one other solo album technically, that didn't come out till I think it was like early 2000s. And again, he had the different vocalists, and that to me was even closer to the Sabbath sound than what this album was, in my opinion. But still had some cool moments. But we'll get to that soon enough. But hey, we have another kind of a new thing that we've started doing initially over on the Facebook land. I'll let Luke explain that and get into that here. And again, just trying to drive you guys over to our Facebook page. So if you only check us out on YouTube, please make sure you go to the Facebook page. So here's what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. Don't make us buy a whip. We can find a way to whip that through the computer. Yes, get to the Facebook. So what we've done, I think we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, maybe, or maybe I'm remembering wrong, but we put every single Kiss song in a big old list, randomized it, and turned it into a tournament. So it's in every Kiss song tournament. We're going to figure out once and for all what is the best Kiss song. I know that's putting it rather interestingly, but we're going to start posting 3 matches every single week. You jump over to our Facebook page, you vote on that, and then it's just going to be a big blowout. Every song from every studio album, anyway. We didn't do any doubles in there, other than I think Strutter and Strutter 78, and also See You in Your Dreams from Rock and Roll Over and See You in Your Dreams from the Gene Simmons solo album. I think those are the only times the song repeats. But the first 3 matches have just pretty much closed. So we're going to talk real quickly about those and what happened. Fairly interesting. I'm telling you, the matches were completely random, legitimately, and it came up with some really interesting. Yeah, who would have thought that just randomly we could have figured that out. So our first match in round 1 was Unholy versus See You in Your Dreams from the Gene Simmons solo album. Bet you guys can't guess which one won that one.
How?
To quote Fleetwood Mac, a landslide.
Yeah.
Was it See You when You're Unholy?
Yeah. So with a whopping 89% of the vote, unholy. We also had the second match, which was Rock and Roll Hell and Coming Home. So fairly interesting mashup there. That one was a little closer, but with 58% of that vote, Rock and Roll Hell won that one.
And that was the studio version, right?
Correct.
Coming Home, yeah.
Yes. I did vote for Coming Home just basically because of the MTV version, but apparently I was not part of the majority there. Same with this next one, our last of the three matches from actually it was a couple of weeks ago now. We had Spit versus Radar for Love, and I voted for Radar for Love there. Again, didn't make it. It was a fairly close match, but with 57% of the vote, Spit won that one. Yep, so those have all moved on to round two. And just earlier, as of the filming of the episode anyway, we posted our next three matches, which are And on the Eighth Day versus Always Near You, Nowhere to Hide, X-Ray Eyes versus Rocket Ride, and I Can't Stop the Rain versus Hard Luck Woman.
And that is crazy that two Peter songs just happen to be pitted together.
Yeah.
And again, like, I feel like we mentioned this but yeah, this was 100% randomized. Luke threw them on the computer. You know, nothing was strategically, oh, let's put this one together and, you know, whatever. But so kind of cool that it came out that way.
Yeah. Several of these. It's going to be practically impossible to pick.
Yeah. And, but yeah, like you were saying with like Strutter 78 and, what was the other one? See You in Your Dreams. Those are different enough, in all fairness, to count those as different songs. So I totally agree. I mean,
right.
But so that's another little new thing we're going to start adding each show. We'll, you know, update the latest round of the votes. And again, there's a lot to get through. So this first round is going to go for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's why we don't want to overwhelm you guys with all of them all at once. You know, we're just dropping, you know, about 3 or so a week. And yeah, so it's going to be fun to see down the road when this thing comes to an end what ends up being the best song.
Yeah. Yep. And there are I'm trying to work on some contingency plans because of course we can't do a tournament with an odd number of choices, and we don't want any songs to just get a free pass through a round. So I think we're going to be every once in a while you'll see a special maybe 5 or 6 songs that have lost previous matches jump back up, and the winner of that 5 or 6 will get back into the regular bracket to even out any odd rounds, which I happen to know already round 2 is going to be an odd round. So right around the time we get finished with round 1, we'll have to have one of those lightning round death match.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, so again, head over to our Facebook page. We also started spreading it around to some of the other Kiss related pages on Facebook. So just trying to see what kind of feedback and interest we can get from you guys, and also, of course, you know, draw some more people to our page. And you may not be familiar with us. Hopefully, you'll become familiar with us, you know, thanks to this, and give us a listen, check us out, spread the word.
Yeah, feel free to share any of those polls as well. We don't mind if you're a Kiss fan, or even if you're not, get in there and vote on them songs.
Yeah, obviously we want as many votes as possible for these songs. We want them to, you know, definitely be a head-to-head type of matchup. You know, we don't want anything to, you know, run away with the win with only getting 3 votes overall or something like that. And you know, we want it to be head-to-head. So make sure to do that.
Do it or go get the whip.
Yep.
The VIP.
The
VIP. So leaving at that, we have comments.
We do. Only on our most recent episode, the episode from a couple of weeks ago now, from Black and Blue Without Love. We've got a comment from Rain in Adamstown. Very familiar name to all of us over here. Glad to see you back. It had been a little while there. What did he say? We read last week. Seems like he got locked out of his account.
Yeah. Very weird.
Yes.
Luke had nothing to do with that, I promise.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. So Rain says the production is much better than the first album. On the other hand, it is much more polished and the songs are not that good. I think the producer did a good job on making the vocals more listener friendly. All in all, it's still okay, but not more. I give it a 5. Thought it was better than the first album, but now as I listen to it, I don't think so. If you compare it to a real world-class act in that kind of pop hard rock like Loverboy, Bob Rock involved on the first 2 albums there is a very big quality difference. The first 4 Loverboy albums are stellar in production, performance, and songs. He also gave us his top 3 From Without Love, which were Nature of the Beach, Rockin' on Heaven's Door, and Swing Time. He noted, interesting that you don't like the 2 songs that have the most life and groove in them. And he also says, next episode will be good. Listen to 7th Star last week. Only thing I say now, I don't like Sabbath with Ozzy, but love the time from Heaven and Hell up to Cross Purposes. More next time.
Jeez, that's a huge statement.
It is. And I mean, I think for the most part I agree. I don't hate Ozzy, but I've always preferred Dio era and Tony Martin era Sabbath. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them things that, it's probably arguable, but true, I guess. There wouldn't be a Sabbath without Ozzy, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also have a comment from Steve McGowan, surprisingly on our YouTube instead of Facebook, where he usually comments. That was strange.
Steve's learning how to use technology, huh?
Steve, what are you doing? And, interestingly, too, his comment has a reply on it from Rabble. So we'll do that for a minute, too. So Steve says, the Miss Mystery video was a spin-off of the famous Twilight Zone episode with William Shatner on an airplane, and he sees a gremlin destroying the wing on the plane. He's freaking out, telling the stewardess that there's something on the wing. She looks out and doesn't see anything. He is the only one that sees the gremlin. This is where the concept of the video came from. He also included a YouTube link for that. Rabble also replies to that saying, William Shatner was in Airplane 2, but not in the Twilight Zone movie. While that gremlin was destroying the wing on the plane, haha, it was Ralph Mouth from Happy Days. Just kidding, it was John Lithgow.
Yeah, I remember, like, I got that vibe from that video, but I still don't see the point in it.
Yeah, what did it have to do with the song,
The
I guess?
song,
Right.
yeah, like,
Right.
I just, like, because I understood that, because that's what it reminded me of. I'm like, well, that's obvious that probably came from that concept of Airplane and the Twilight Zone and everything, but it was just like, what did that have to do with the song? It's like he looks out and sees the band performing, but nobody else can see them or something.
Yeah, it's kind of that is pretty cheesy.
It really is, especially when that hole opens in the floor. That is the worst part of that movie.
Yeah.
Or best, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's do a music video and theme it after Jurassic Park
Yeah,
for the song Regression. I mean,
exactly.
Let's do
it's-
We could have the T-Rex eat the kid instead of the car. Yes. So we also have Steve and Rochelle McGowan's picks for 7th Star. Real quick, Steve gave 7th Star a 5 out of 10. His top 3 were No Stranger to Love, In for the Kill, and Turn to Stone. Rochelle actually gave 7th Star an 8 out of 10, and her top 3 were Danger Zone, 7th Star, and In Memory, which, by the way, guys, we decided to combine 7th Star and Sphinx the Guardian just because it's kind of meant to be an intro to that song. So I kind of compiled there, but it's all good. That doesn't change anything in their votes.
yeah, I think we mentioned it on the episode last week, we it's our fault. We probably should have put it on the Facebook thing too. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
We didn't expect Steve to be smart enough to catch that. So.
Oh, poor Steve.
Poor
Like Mario.
Steve.
Poor Steve.
We need to get him back on here. Steve, man, which one of these do you want to guest on?
Yes.
Come on.
You paused like you expected him to answer.
Yeah, he's just out in the hallway. I'm right here.
It's like, surprise, joining us now.
That would be a great way to have a guest.
Actually, it says they are away right now, so.
Oh, that's no good. Well, come home, Steve.
But yeah, Sphincter is just an interlude of Seventh Star. I meant Sphinx, yeah.
Yeah.
I really was like, wait, what? Did I miss a song? I was so confused just now. Hidden track. Sphincter.
All right. Well, that was it for comments. You ready for some album info?
Sure am.
Sweet. All right. So, what a weird installment we've got here, both as it relates to Kiss and as it relates to Black Sabbath, even. It's kind of weird. Seventh Star is the 12th studio album by English heavy metal band Black Sabbath. This was released at the end of January 1986. This was a very strange and I think one-time lineup of Black Sabbath because this was originally intended to be a solo album for Tony Iommi. The whole thing was written and recorded and set to release as Tony Iommi's solo album, and then Warner Brothers came in and said, "Nope, we're releasing it as Black Sabbath." So that's why the cover says Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. That was their little like compromise, I guess. It had something to do with contractual obligation, in addition to the manager Don Arden saying, "Oh, it'll sell more if it says Black Sabbath."
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. So this was recorded at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles and also Cheshire Studios in Georgia. This was produced by Jeff Glixman, who does have a long list of other production stuff. Yngwie Malmsteen is on there, Gary Moore, lots of good stuff he's got on there. Our personnel here, of course, we've got Tony Iommi on guitar, Glenn Hughes on vocals, Dave Spitz on the bass guitar, Eric Singer on the drums, and Jeff Nichols on keyboards. So lots of interesting stuff there. Glenn Hughes, of course, was bassist and vocalist in Deep Purple for a little while. Jeff Nichols had been playing keyboards with Black Sabbath for years and years and years. This is the first Black Sabbath album to list him as an official member.
Oh.
We've also got Gordon Copley, who played bass guitar on No Stranger to Love, and then Ray Gillen, who ended up being their touring vocalist. Apparently he did some extra vocals. Oh, okay, that's only on a deluxe edition released in 2010. That's kind of strange. So Eric Singer had a real short stint with Black Sabbath. He did this album, he toured this album, and then he recorded the following album, The Eternal Idol, which is on our list, but I don't think he toured for that album. He left Black Sabbath shortly after that, I think, to join Alice Cooper.
I believe so, yeah. Crazy that this album came out the year I started kindergarten.
Yeah.
And it's like I never even heard of Eric Singer until he joined Kiss, so it's like kind of weird to think like, wow, here he was doing stuff then.
Yeah.
And Luke had yet to exist by that point.
Yes.
My sister was a year old.
Is that it?
Yeah, that there's nothing really too much to go here. This for some reason the stuff doesn't list singles anymore. Where's Jay Rucker when you need him? He used to I would imagine none of them light up blue or anything. I would have said No Stranger to Love was a single, but apparently not. Didn't really do too good on the charts. Got up to number 11 in Sweden. Whoopee. Doesn't look as though it's been made gold or platinum or anything. So, not a good time period for Sabbath.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if it really would have done any different, for the better, had it been an Iommi solo album. Maybe there was enough interest at that time. I'm not sure. I mean, I was too young to know anything. I hadn't even heard of Black Sabbath at that point. But
Right.
maybe there was enough of a interest at that time where people would have wanted to hear just a solo album from him.
Yeah. And it could have been accepted more. I forgot too. Now that I'm looking at the different Black Sabbath albums, this is also the first Black Sabbath album to not feature founding member Geezer Butler on bass,
Right.
which is another kind of hurting. A lot of
Yeah.
Sabbath people were probably like, "Well, it's just the
Right.
one guy. It doesn't share any familiar members at all."
So
And that's
I was just looking up to see if there were any singles
Uh-huh.
off of this album, and it didn't I didn't see any, but it did say that in January of this year was the 33-year like anniversary of it.
mhm.
But it did say that Iommi intentionally made it to where it didn't sound like a Black Sabbath to expand, his horizons. Which I mean, if he intended for it to be a solo album, I mean, it's
Yeah.
understandable why he would want to kind of, get away from that a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like at that time, yeah, Sabbath was basically a shell of what it was. So maybe they had a lot of the fans were harping on them the way they harp on Kiss nowadays. Like, oh, they're not even Black Sabbath anymore. They're blah blah blah. Maybe that's the feeling that was going on, and that's why he didn't want the Sabbath name on it. But
Right.
of course, those record execs, oh no, you got to put that on there. That's the name, and
Yeah.
so who knows? It could have been a double-edged sword in the long run. Hopefully we get some comments. Maybe some of you more seasoned listeners that were maybe remember that time frame and could tell us maybe what that initial feeling was about Sabbath at that time.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just get on into her. So, starting off the album, we have "In for the Kill," and this is my number 4. Uh, wow, yeah, a drum intro to start the album, pretty cool. I can already see why Iommi didn't want the Sabbath name on this. It has more of a sort of a Maiden feel, at least on this first song, um, which I'll say right now, it completely changed by the end of the album to me. But this first song that started off, yeah, wasn't a big fan of the drum sound right off the bat. I mean, you could really hear that constant double bass that Eric's doing throughout the whole track, but you just cannot feel it. I mean, you could tell it's there, but it's almost like they just record it with a room mic or something, and you really want to feel that. And I also thought the guitar solo was too loud in the mix. Just the solo parts. Everything else seemed pretty even and balanced, but great vocals too, and it was one hell of an opener.
Yeah, for me, I put this one as my number 3, and I also said that it was the drum fill opening. It was really cool. Like I thought that was just you don't hear that very often uh,
Mm,
with especially bands like Black Sabbath and you know guitarists like Tony Iommi that focus on opening an album with a drum solo like that.
right.
So drum fill. It wasn't really a solo, but so yeah, it was really neat the way that it started out. I think, and then um, I like that the solo was it had some length to it. It wasn't a real short, just kind of, like he just like threw it out there. Like it seemed like he maybe put some time into it. And it had some length to it, which I always like about solos anyway. Um, I was not a fan of the vocals in this song. His vocals, yes, but that background, like choiry thing he had, I was not a fan of that. Like I felt like I was in a church. Like it was so weird, but that was the only song on the album that did that. So I was like, okay, I'm okay. Like, but like when he started to do that, I was like, what is this? Like, this is weird. But his vocals were really good. Like I was surprised. Like I've never heard him. Like at least this was the first time I'd ever heard this album before.
Right.
So, um, yeah, I mean, overall, I think that it was a pretty good opener for the album, and it made it higher on my list because I thought it was just the drum fill alone opening it was cool. I think.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder if this was the one that was sort of thrown on at the last minute because something
Yeah.
about the production's a bit different, and then with the whole mix, it's almost like they didn't take the time to really balance everything out too well.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the only songs on the whole album with any vocal harmony at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange. This is my number two. Of course, I also said cool, exciting beginning. Uh, Eric Singer making his grand entrance known, without a doubt. Um, I also said the chorus vocals were weird. That it was good. The harmonies were good, but it was weird that it was in a major key.
Yeah.
Again, it's sort of right along with that we were talking about Tony Iommi kind of expanding his sound and pretty much right off the bat letting you know this isn't Black Sabbath, but then it is.
All right.
Yeah, the other thing that I noted here too were the bass drums. They're just not defined enough. They're
Mhm.
not loud enough in the mix, and they're all boom and no click. There's no definitive start of the bass drum. This song
Mhm.
has been so much heavier and would have felt so much, I think, even faster if they had just put some high end, found that click of the beater on the bass drum, you know?
I agree. And like Savannah, you said this was the 33rd anniversary this year. I wish they kind of would have went in and remixed it or something, and it could have brought a whole new life to this thing.
Now would be the greatest time, I think, honestly, for Tony Iommi to go back through all of the like all the ones that aren't well known.
Hmm.
This, the whole Tony Martin part, all of those albums could use a nice remix, remaster. People might be like, "Oh, holy crap!" There was some other good Black Sabbath stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I think it said it was January 28th. I think.
oh.
So maybe they could do it this year. This upcoming. It's coming up.
I noticed that there have been some remixed, remastered Sabbath things come out. The one that has Time Machine on it. I just saw that in the store the other day.
Really?
So it makes me wonder if maybe they did touch that one up. I have to look into that. But apparently they have remastered and re-released some of those type of albums. So
Nice.
be interesting to note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving into track two, we have No Stranger to Love. This is my number five. Um, kind of ballady here, which is weird to say for Sabbath and Iommi. And then being the second track, I was kind of like, eh. But man, I tell you what, this song, it really did hook me, even though it's my number five. But, great vocals on here. I love that vocal hook at the end of the chorus. It's real catchy. I can't remember how it goes now, but it's one of them just catchy type of things. A lot of soul to it. And then all of a sudden, the kick drum seems to sound a bit better. Like you could definitely tell a difference. Like it's still not quite as thumping your chest, but you could definitely tell a little bit of a difference in the sound there. So again, that just kind of makes me wonder if they had rushed the first track or whatever the case is.
Um, yep, this one was my number 8. It was the very last one for me, and it just felt like it was a typical 80s ballad. Um, but I mean, it wasn't a bad thing per se. Uh,
Hmm.
it had, by the sound of the drums and then the lyrics in it, just it was typical 80s. I feel. Um, yeah, it had a nice tempo and a nice like flowy solo to it, but I just wasn't a fan of it. I'm beginning to wonder. I told Luke, I said, ever since I started doing this with you guys, I'm beginning to wonder if any of these albums that I'm listening to, if I'm going to like any of the ballads on them, because every single one we've done together with me as part of this, the ballads always end up at the bottom for me because I don't know, they just don't do it for me for some reason.
Hmm. The show turns you into a musical snob.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I love ballads. Like in general, like ballads are like, I mean, they can be some of the most amazing songs, but
Mhm.
for some reason, I am just not a fan of these ballads that I've been hearing, and this was another one that I was just like, oh, no.
I guess for me, it's kind of like if I go into the album kind of expecting a ballad, then that's a little different. But when it's something like this, and then I hear that, especially the second track, it's kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of odd too that it was at the very beginning almost.
Yeah,
Usually when bands do that, it's like 4 or 5 songs into it, and then that's where it kind of slows it down. But yeah, this one was like right smack dab at the top there.
yeah. I mean, again, though, that vocal hook in the chorus at the end, though, that did catch me enough to
Yeah,
save it a little bit.
it did keep my interest though. Like
Mhm.
it didn't make me lose interest at all. Like it did.
Right.
I did. Even though I was kind of like, yeah, I still was like, okay, what's next? Like I wanted to know what was next.
Yes, yes.
Whereas sometimes you hear things and you're like, I don't even want to hear the rest of this. So yeah.
I'm curious. I read that the music video for this song has additional vocal harmony. I wonder what that means.
Hmm.
Was this a single then?
No, not according to Wikipedia.
Oh,
But
I don't know. The way I see it, if it has a video, it's a single.
oh right,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it might as well be. This was also my number 8. Uh, the beginning brought to mind Die Young from Heaven and Hell. I thought
Ah,
the kind of keyboard guitar solo intro thing, which seemed almost like a callback to me, which was interesting because that wasn't even that long ago. Heaven and Hell was 1980, and then this album's 86, so seems fairly soon to be doing something like that again, especially if he's trying to break away from this type of stuff. But yeah, just not a big fan of the song as ballads go, and like you guys said, having it so early in the track listing felt like it. Any energy that In for the Kill brought up, and I was ready for some rockin', and then this just destroyed the energy.
yes, yes. Well,
Well, I think
thankfully, well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's too because it just hits you out of the blue that you didn't if you never heard it or it had been a long time since you'd listened to it, you just don't expect a ballad that soon.
No.
So it just kind of like you're pumped and then you're like, oh, like when you're expecting a ballad to come up, like you're 4 or 5 songs in, you're thinking, okay, there should be a slowdown here soon. With this one, it was like right there in your face all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, wait, like okay,
And with Sabbath, like the basic like ballads we had with Sabbath was like Changes and Planet Caravan. But to
yeah,
me, like those are still the kind of ballads that are still like the hardest of the metalheads still love those songs because there's just something different to them, even
right,
though they are kind of a ballad. But
yeah,
this was, full on, just
right,
kind of
yeah.
other end of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully we have track 3 here, Turn to Stone. This is my number 3. No, this is not a cover of the ELO song. But man, the album goes right back into overdrive with this track. Man, another nice drum intro, almost in the vein of Painkiller in a way. Um, Eric doesn't let up on this one at all. We're only 3 songs in, and he has definitely earned his keep already for me. And then, towards the end of the song, I really like, you know, Iommi kind of starts throwing in all these weird guitar sounds and effects and whatnot. And then you can hear Eric doing some cool little, ride bell, work and stuff on there. And so that really caught me. And, but yeah, it was really nice to after that ballad, to just kick it right back into gear, thank God. So.
Yep, that was just about word for word what I said as well.
Ah,
Uh, with this was my number 2, and I said this. The drum fill opening the song was great, like because it was so slow, and then it was just like it's in your face again, and it like recaptures the
mm,
whole feel of it. I think um, it was it's very fast paced, and I think that like you said, I think that was nice after the ballad. It helped bring it back up. It helped bring the energy back up where it needed to be. and through the
Right.
whole song. I mean, it was just in your face through the whole song. It was. I was surprised, like honestly, that it was like after the ballad and the first song kind of had a good pace to it, but then this one was just like, I mean, it was right there. And
Yeah,
then
I was a little hesitant, like, oh God, what's
yeah,
it gonna happen now? But I was like, come
right,
on, it's
exactly.
Iommi. It's and thank God he delivered. So.
Yeah, and I think the lyrics fit the pace of the song really well as
Mhm.
well too.
Yes, this was my number 4, and it really made me wonder: did Eric just start jamming, and they were like, "Yeah," or did Tony say this one should start with drums, and Eric was like, "Wow, another one? Okay." I'm kind of curious what that thought process was. That's so cool that 2 of the songs start with him doing something. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the upbeat, energetic feel of the song, really good. This could have opened the album, I feel like, and it would have been good. Even better, they should have closed the album with this.
Mm-hmm.
Please God, why didn't they close the album with this? The only other note that I had here is by this point, I think I've decided that Glenn Hughes' voice is annoying.
Yeah.
I was a bit on the fence for the first 2 songs. I just don't think I dig it that much. He has that same, and only sometimes, the same quality that annoyed me about Michael Bolton's voice
Mm.
annoys me sometimes in Glenn's.
Yeah. It's almost like maybe this song was going to be the opener, and then they came up with the "In for the Kill." Um, but yeah, it's like Tony must have been pretty high on Eric's playing to let him have 2 drum intros. I mean, Eric was basically an unheard of at this time, and
Right.
um, it's like I can't even wonder how he got the gig in the first place. It's like it's a pretty cool story, but yeah, he must have even then, like he really saw something in Eric, and it's like why don't you start off another one here.
Yeah, I came to the conclusion too, like Luke, his voice at different parts just kind of, it's like a mix between Michael Bolton and Wayne Newton. It's so weird. It wasn't bad at all. It was just for this album, I feel like it was, I don't know if it exactly fit per se,
Hmm.
but it wasn't bad at all. Like I think he did a good job. It was just, yeah, there were times where I'm like, "Oh, will you just stop? I want to hear the music." Like,
Well, good thing the next song is Donka Shane, since he has the Wayne Newton sound. No.
right? I know.
All right. So next up is Sphinx the Guardian, which is again just a pretty much an intro piece, and then it goes into Seventh Star, the title track. So again, of course, we combine those into one track here. This is my number 1. Um, let's see. So I already said that Sphinx kicks right into the title track. Man, I'll tell you what. I honestly started off a tad bit bored with this track at first. Like, kind of, here's the title track. Okay, come on. But I'll tell you what, man. The part that starts at around the 220 mark, epic as hell. Signature Iommi. Um, Basically, from that point to the whole rest of the song, I was just hooked. Loved it. Brought it to life, and then I felt like Eric really channels the Vinny Appice drum style on this song, man. Those kind of signature, the double hits on the kick drum and stuff that Vinny did a lot in the Heaven and Hell, that whole era type of stuff. Just had that sort of heavy groove to it in the pocket, but yeah. So this was a killer track. Just again, signature Iommi right here. This is, to me, what you would expect to hear when you put this album on.
I actually kind of felt like, in a lot of ways, that song reminded me of the song Heaven and Hell.
Really nice.
um, this one was my number 6. And the only reason why it was so low was because there were other songs that I liked a lot more. But it was all around, it was a good song.
Mm.
Um, I thought the keyboard intro was really cool, and it was the keyboards through this whole song are really eerie sounding, and I always have loved that. Anytime a song can have like an eerie kind of quality to it, it's just it gives me goosebumps, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, you know, they fit really well with this song. They it just was a good combination all around. Like the song just meshed well with everything together, and it kept the vibe going.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I said that the drums they sounded super solid in this, and they hit you hard. Like I feel like it hit you like right in the chest. I feel like if you were listening to this, like, and you had the bass turned up really well, like that would hit you like in the chest. Like I was impressed by that. I thought that was cool. That it just,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was pounding, like it was jamming, man. I liked it a lot.
This is one of them where I'm like, oh, I wish I could see them do this live somehow.
Yeah, yes, because that would have been cool to have that, like just yeah, the whole eerie quality to it, and then yeah, just those drums just hitting you. It was yeah, it was classic Eric, I think, for
Yes.
sure too.
This one was my number one as well.
Nice.
This one to me felt like the most Black Sabbath. I think that it just really felt like a Black Sabbath song, unlike the other ones, which kind of felt like an intentional departure.
Mm-hmm.
The riff and the vocal harmonies were really cool. Like you said, that bit, the middle bit, the solo was cool and really different. You wouldn't have expected anything like that. Um, Only complaint, the ending I felt like dragged out a little too long, and there was just nothing over top of it. It was just the riff over and over. I really wish he would have at least put a guitar solo or something over top it as it faded out. That would have been kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, I believe this was the second longest track on the album, of like 5.5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Danger Zone. This is my number 7. Uh, Unfortunately, man, this is the one where it seems like it's happened on just about every album so far, where just kind of got bored with it. It just seemed a little too straightforward. Not a whole lot into it. Just kind of that typical hair metal vibe, and I don't know. It almost just felt like it was a little bit rushed as well, and I guess just coming off of 7 Star and all, and even Turn the Stone for that matter, it's like, just it was kind of a letdown, just losing a little bit of focus there.
This one was my number one. I loved it. I loved it from start to finish. It had a very Dawkinish feel to me, and I'm a very huge fan of Dawkin. So it was like it did have that 80s hair metal feel, but I loved that about it. Like that's why I loved it so much because I am a huge Dawkin fan. I grew up listening to that. My mom and my dad both. And so like when I heard like when it started, I was like, this could just be a Dawkin song. Like, and honestly, I would have preferred Don Dawkin to be singing it, honestly. But I will say that his vocals they fit into this song very well, and they were, and I just think they kind of had trouble doing that so far, and they meshed really well with this song. I think. Um, I liked in the middle that the guitar and the drums kind of did this like back and forth thing just for a little while, and it was really cool. I was like, that is so cool because that is so something like Dawkins would have done, and it was just like the whole thing. It just synced so well for me, like because it just had that Dawkins feel to it, and it was just so cool to hear a band like Sabbath do something like that. Like it's just unusual. So it definitely kept my interest because that's the reason why I liked it so much was because it just had that feel to it for me, that 80s hair metal, like I could mosh to this song, like headbang, like yeah.
See,
So
that
definitely
that
up there for me.
that's a perfect example of the beauty of the differences right here, because I personally never got into Dokken much. I probably only know like a couple songs. Um, but see, there you go. You're coming from a different perspective. You grew up on them, so bam, there you go. That's why that song gravitates to you more than it did to me. So I mean, hey,
Yeah,
I've tried to get into them more. I don't know. I just can't ever really find anything that really catches me. But
right, yeah.
This one was my number 3. Really felt like this had potential to be my number 1. When the song started, I was like, "Oh yeah, here it is." I really liked that harmony guitar riff, but then as it went, I was like, "Man, that's this riff is the only riff in the whole song, I guess." So I really wish they had written some different parts. And then, as I seem to complain about every time we do one of these, the fade out. Didn't care for the fade out. He starts singing the same lyrics he had already been singing again, and the song just fades out. And it's like, man, that cool riff deserved a cool ending. And
Yeah.
I know that it's not this. Guitarists like Tony Iommi are leagues better than I'll ever be, but it feels lazy sometimes that they don't write endings, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like we got robbed, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, give us more.
Yeah.
Let's see. Heart Like a Wheel. Next track here. This is my number 2. Wow, that intro. I like the fade in effect, you know, something a little different there. And God, again, that guitar work Iommi's doing over this, oh, amazing. Um, you know, more of a bluesy vibe on this track, but you know, it's still not too laid back. Iommi again just takes over the solo with the solo and reminds us why this is his album. You know, no matter what name is on it, this really is his album. You know, with this track. So
This one was my number 5. Um, it was just, I feel for me that it was just a good middle song for me. But yeah, the open with that sort of solo, it was just, and it came at you like he came at you with that solo at the beginning with it. So it was kind of unusual to open like that, but I loved it. Like there was nothing about that that I didn't like, and it just seemed like this song was basically just guitar solos over and over again. But that
mm-hmm.
was awesome. Like I thought that was so cool because you just don't see that with most bands. Like they just have one solo and that's it in each song. And he did it with this song. I mean, he just one after another, and I thought that was just so cool. I was like, that's just so neat and unusual to hear that. Like, you know, and they were all different. They were all unique. They all had their own vibe thing, you know, their own sound to them. None of them. It wasn't like he was just playing the same solo over and over and over again. There was like what 5 or 6 of them in this song, and each one of them were different. Each one of them were unique, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved that about this song. And
That's Go
again,
ahead.
drums too. They were just so solid. They hit you, and I like that too. Like it just fit so well together.
Yeah, it's another perfect mix here.
Yes.
And you know, that's one thing I love about Iommi and his style and approach and everything. You know, you put on like a Satriani or Yngwie Malmsteen, you put on one of their albums, and you know all you're gonna get is just a bunch of the whole album.
Yes.
But
Right.
with Iommi, man, it's like he don't need to do
Very,
that. And you know
very
his
style. Yes.
yeah, like that's kind of what I'm more gravitated to is the kind of stuff he does
Yes.
on his solo albums. And I like Satriani and all too, but I can only take so much of it.
Right. Yeah.
This was my number 5 as well. Very interesting, the bluesy feel in this one. I think I would have preferred this whole album to be like that,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
That would have been a great way to depart from the Black Sabbath sound, a great way for Tony to really take off across the fretboard. And I really considered making this my number 1. I ended up deciding to go in a different direction with my ranking, but if I would have made this my number 1, it would have been because this is the one track where I was like, Glenn Hughes was the perfect vocalist
Hmm.
for this. His voice fit this song better than any other song on the album, I think personally.
Yep.
Wow.
Um, when I read on Wikipedia that this one was kind of bluesy, I thought, ugh, yeah, I actually didn't expect to like it, but then I thought it came across really well. It sounded like maybe it started as a jam song, but it worked perfectly. Again, though, it did feel like it went on just a little too long, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, really, it's like Tony just went back to the roots, man. Because if you listen to early Sabbath and, even before they were Sabbath, when they were Earth, I mean, that's basically what they were doing is, bluesy type stuff. So
Yeah.
just kind of taking it back there. Let's see. So 2 tracks left here. Next up is Angry Heart. My number 6 here. Um, didn't have a lot to say about this one, but other than just more signature Iommi heavy riffs going on throughout this one. That was really all I had to note for that.
This one was my number 4, and when I was listening to this, I could hear this sounds like it could have come off of a Kiss album to me. It really did. I could see Paul singing this song. The lyrics in the song were probably my favorite off the whole album, and it was just, but it ended so abruptly. Like when it ended, I asked Luke. I said, "Is it over?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What? Well, how did it end already?" Like I was kind of disappointed and sad that it was over. Like because I was feeling it. I was jiving. Like I was jiving
I
here to it.
I can agree with that, and I'll get into that more on the next track. But yeah, I can agree with what you said there.
Like I could just I would be interested in hearing Paul sing this song. Like I think it would be so cool
hmm
because it just sounded like something that could have came off a Kiss album to me.
Yeah, this was my number 6 as well. I really like the vocal melody in the verses. Um, that would have been cool if you would have done more stuff like that. The piano build up in there in the verses added a lot. I thought that was a cool touch. But yeah, the ending, just suddenly it was over. And unlike what I've been complaining about with some of the other ones, this definitely felt like it could have been a longer song. It could have been
Yeah.
done a little more.
Right. And speaking of which, the last track here, In Memory, number 8 for me. Uh, so again, of always to end the album, we end it with another ballad. Not only that, it's pretty short for that matter. It's barely 2.5 minutes long. Barely over that. Totally not what I was expecting from an Iommi / Sabbath album especially to end it. And so, like I was just saying, um, I was sitting here doing stuff on the computer as I was listening, and when Angry Heart was on, and then I was sitting here, and all of a sudden, okay, the song ended, and I was waiting on the next track to start, which would have been this, and it was the end of the album. The song had already ended, and I'm like, wait, I don't even remember hearing the other song cut out, fade out and then go into this song. So I don't know what happened there. So I was thinking it was still Angry Heart. So then I had to go back and kind of, you know, cut, just kind of skim through both songs again to wow, I totally missed that. But yeah, I'm like, man, this probably would have been of all the albums that we have on this entire list, this would have probably been the album that I said, oh, there ain't no way this one is going to end weak.
Right.
And sure enough, we did. So,
Yes.
but 2 ballads on an Iommi Sabbath, not a big fan of that choice. But and on top of that, again, like you said, it probably should have been a longer track, or they could have added more, something a little more epic to it to at least try to save the song or whatever. But yeah, just to close it out with two and a half minute or whatever it is ballad. Not a fan of that.
Yeah. So this one was my number 7, and it pretty much for me just tied with No Stranger to Love. I just don't think this was the one to end the album with. It just was bland. It was meh. I was not a fan of the way he sang it. I feel like the lyrics were good, but the way he sang it was just, I don't know. I was not a fan at all the whole time I was listening to it. I lost interest at the end of it, and I just zoned out. Like I completely zoned out. When it
Yeah.
was over, and I like blinked and shook my head, I thought, oh, okay, it's over. Like
Yeah.
it did not keep my interest. I lost interest immediately, almost in this song, and I was like, this was not a good closing for this album at all. I
Yeah.
would have been better. I think it would have been better if it would have been like Heart Like a Wheel or just one of them real heavy, pulsing ones to end the album with, and instead they chose a meh ballad that wasn't even really. It was kind of like they just slapped it on there. Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of this one either.
It's almost like Turn the Stone should have started the album and End for the Kill should have ended it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, apparently I zoned out too, so I definitely see.
yeah. I did. I was sitting here and I was completely zoned out, and then when I zoned back in, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. This was also my number 7. Yeah, they should have done 100 different things. This song should have been in the middle of the album, not at the end. Just like with Angry Heart, they should have developed it more. Um, it was based on a cool riff. I felt pretty much the same as with Angry Heart. It was like they had a good idea. They didn't really have anything else that went with it, but they went ahead and recorded it anyway.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
not enough for a whole song.
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, oh, we need an album closer. Oh, let's just throw this on there. Like, especially when it's that short. Come on.
Yeah.
Iommi and Sabbath never write songs that short. Like, it was definitely just a rushed throwaway thing.
Yeah.
So that concludes the album. Into the overall here, I give this one a 4. There's plenty of classic Iommi moments throughout the album, and heavy riffs aplenty. Eric was a great choice for the album. Felt like he fit in just like a puzzle piece. But 3 of the 8 songs lost my attention at times, and that's why it ended up with a lower score for me. Definitely worth a listen though. I have seen this one, out in the wild at times, like if I'm record hunting and stuff, I've seen it. And I think if I see it again, that I probably would pick it up, just to have in the collection now. And for that matter, man, if you guys haven't heard Iommi's other, just kind of an honorable mention, his other solo album that he released back in whatever it was, 2002, something like that, give that one a listen to. That is an amazing album. Again, different vocalists. Ozzy's on it. The song "Goodbye Lament" with Dave Grohl is amazing. "Time Is Mine" with Phil Anselmo is a great song. I mean, just it's full of all kinds of kind of hidden gems at this point. Definitely give that album a listen as well. But mainly this one, of course, for the show purpose.
What's the name of that album?
I believe it's just called Iommi.
I,
It's like a silver cover.
okay.
Have you ever heard the oh crap, what was it called? Is it called So What or something like that? There's a really weird supergroup band that Iommi played in. They only released a couple of songs. Oh no, it was called Who Cares?
Who cares?
And
I
it's
don't think I've heard of that.
oh, it's great. Justin turned me on to these guys. I think both their songs are on YouTube, or maybe it's only one. They have studio video, but it's Iommi on guitar, Jason Newsted from Metallica on bass, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden on drums,
Wow.
one of the guitarists or the guitarist from Him playing with Iommi,
Wow.
John Lord on keyboard, and I think Ian Gillian on vocals.
Right there.
Wow, that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know if they did a whole album, but if they didn't, they should have.
We should look that up. Yeah, for me, this one overall was a 7 for me out of 10, and that was just because my top 4 songs they were great for me. The Danger Zone, Turn to Stone, Aim for the Kill, and Angry Heart. All 4 of those were just, I mean, they kept it going for me, so that's why it kind of was higher for me. So I mean, yeah, that's how I feel about that.
I have a theory. I listened to this album in the context of the rest of the Black Sabbath discography once a few years ago, back when I used to have about a 40-minute one-way drive to work every day. I would just listen to tons of music. I would listen to discographies from the first album to the end, and Black Sabbath was one that I did. And so a lot of my expectation going into Seventh Star was my memory of having listened to it on the way to Salina and thinking it was great. Uh, Now I'm wondering if it was because my memory of the album directly preceding this, Born Again, is horrible. I remember hating every little tiny moment of Born Again, so I'm wondering if Seventh Star was just so not as bad that I liked it at the time. Listening to it now out of context of the rest of the discography, I remember this album being a lot more solid. Uh, not not at all impressed uh, this time around. I ended up just going with a 3 out of 10. Um, Now this feels to me like one of those fairly common albums in the middle of a band's career where even though everything's played well and the production is okay and the band claims they're sounding better than ever, the songs just plain aren't good enough to be hits. They're not really that memorable. Um, Stuff like even my number one in this, Seventh Star, the title track, while it is a good song, I feel like Heaven and Hell does the same thing but better.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, most of the songs they had cool bits in them, but then they just kind of wrote some stuff around those cool ideas for each song and called it done. Of course, there were some exceptions to that, but it just felt like too common a theme for the whole album. In addition to that, for the most part, I just don't think Glenn Hughes' voice fit the style of music that well. Like I said, at times it reminded me of the bits of Michael Bolton's voice I don't like. Um, Now, on the other hand, there were times like Heart Like a Wheel where it was perfect. It was absolutely, and again, I wish the whole album had been more like that. It would have been different. It would have been weird but cool, and his voice would have worked. Not sorry at all. He is not the vocalist on the other Sabbath album we have to do. Just personally, and I've heard his stuff with like Deep Purple, and I know he's done some solo stuff. There's some other stuff, and it fits. Just I don't know what it was about this. It didn't work. But of course, Tony Iommi is a killer guitarist, so all the solos are great. Like you said, Eric Singer absolutely was a perfect fit. If they were looking for somebody that hadn't really done anything else, or at least hadn't done that much yet, they picked the perfect guy, the perfect kind of jewel in the rough to come and really, really shine on the drums. Uh, However, like we talked about at the beginning, the production I think really took a bite out of his playing.
Yeah.
There were times on the album where the drums sounded okay, but if they had just done something, anything with that bass drum, I think it would come across so much better. So overall, much as I was ready to have this as my highest ranked album of all of the ones we were going to do in the Second Coming, this is just not what I remembered it being.
Wow. Savannah, what'd you rank it again?
7.
Okay. So while he's tallying up things here, so looking at the info on the other Iommi solo album, yeah, it was released October 17th, 2000. Looks like they recorded it over a 4-year period. But yeah, you've got Henry Rollins on a song. You got John Tempesta plays drums on one of the tracks. Dave Grohl, of course, plays drums on the track that he also sings. You also have Brian May doing additional guitars on a few of the tracks. Um, Matt Cameron, Serge Tankian from System on one of the songs. Billy Corgan, Kenny Aronoff drums on one of the tracks.
How many songs?
There's 10 songs.
Okay.
Peter Steele, and then the song that Ozzy's on, Bill Ward plays drums on that.
Nice.
And Billy Idol's on it. So yeah, and then there's another one I have on my hard drive here that I'm not familiar with, but it's one that he did with Glenn Hughes called Fused. It's Iommi and Hughes together. I have that on the hard drive. Not familiar with it. Haven't listened to it. Looks like Kenny Aronoff does the drums on the whole album.
Okay, I think we're all tallied and ready to go here.
All right.
Okay, no ties. That's nice.
Sweet.
Yes.
Wow. Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been a
It's
while.
been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
like in the 4K stuff.
Yeah, probably. Oh man! All right, so this ended up with a 5.4 out of 10 average overall rating. That's actually pretty good. That puts it above the last Black and Blue album, above the Michael Bolton album, uh, above a lot of the the stuff, and I'd still say deservedly above Laura Nero and Dan Hartman and Was Not Was. Um, in eighth place, which is our last for this time, In Memory. No surprise there. We all had it in last or almost last, except Rochelle, and it was her number one. uh, in seventh place, No Stranger to Love. Again, not a big surprise there. We all had that fairly low. In sixth place, Angry Heart. In fifth place, Heart Like a Wheel. In fourth place, Danger Zone. And our top three, I'd say based on what we all said, I think the three of us at least will definitely all agree this was deserved. In third place, End for the Kill. In second place, Turn to Stone. And in first place, Sphinx the Guardian / Seventh Star.
Awesome.
I was almost
Very
actually
solid.
my top three just myself almost.
Yeah, it's a very solid top three there.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Let's see here. So, next week we are once again back to the Black and Blue discography with the album Nasty Nasty. We do have another Sabbath album coming up after in a few weeks, and there is, I believe, only one more Black and Blue after the next one as well. So, getting close to wrapping that one up. Um,
We've got a Kiss guitarist bonanza coming up.
yes, we do.
We got the
Black Blue.
Nasty Nasty, and then, yeah, Vinnie Vincent Invasion, then White Tiger, then the first Fraley's Comet. Holy crap.
Yes.
Dang.
If
All
only
right.
if only Bruce had something in there in between all those.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so that's going to be awesome. Looking forward to visiting another Black and Blue album next week, and so again, get your votes in for that and all the other past episodes. Again, make sure to check out our Facebook page, catch the tournament going on with the best Kiss song. Get your votes in for that. Keep spreading the word, and drop us some comments and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, so until next week with Black and Blue, we shall see you later.
Yeah.
What has she got that the others have not? It must be that look in her eyes.